teacups, what's brewing? Welcome back to the channel. We have a few pieces of content to go through today. Before I get started, because people always ask when I wear red lipstick, the lipstick and liner are both MAC. The lipstick is Marrakesh, the liner is Aubrey, and I've topped it with a gloss, the NYX Butter Gloss in the shade Apple Crisp. If at any point, because I'm wearing a gloss, it ends up on my teeth, I do apologise to you. Usually I only notice that in editing, so that's always awesome. I've had a frustrating few days running some errands, so I have not been covering stuff, but previously on the Chantal show, continued fighting with the creator harassing her family through the community tab, and in a wider sense, continued fighting with her audience and reactors and how terrible we are, as she usually does. Post has now been deleted. Shocker, I know. Threats and actions to dox any members who openly support Chantal or gave her super chats were made. She didn't really care, but she was having trouble keeping up with deleting the dox information from her chat in her live, even though she had the help of like Solar and stuff, which might explain why she hasn't gone live in the last couple of days. There's always the possibility that she has traveled somewhere to try and trick us with the timeline of renewing her visa. We will see. I'm personally still kind of leaning on the idea that she's going to go to Canada anyway. We'll find out. She's got at least a couple of weeks. Now, her subs are down, whether as a result of just how awfully she's been behaving through this, or a result of the fear, or whatever it is. She was at 93.9 last time I checked. Not a huge exodus. I would say it's around what she loses anytime she manages to redefine our definition of what rock bottom is. But we'll see how long it lasts, as her channel does tend to recover and kind of stagnate at the level that she's been for ages now. She's usually very vocal that she doesn't care about her subscriber numbers, and to be honest, if history is anything to go by, we'll probably see some swings, but likely nothing will change long term. So let's move on along to the first piece of content today. Guys, I watched the couples vlog. Save the minutes of your lives. I watched it. Let's go through it. They leave, they're driving. We get the usual sweep of the lobby first to show she's walking to the car. She stops for an iced Americano with no milk and sugar, which tells us immediately that she is on a health kick. There's some very wooden Salah conversation and forced like goofy style laughter, but the usual things for him, very practiced dialogue. They went to the desert to walk because Chantal is too embarrassed to struggle where people can see her. Salah has to take a call, so she leaves her wandering in the dark. I'm fairly shocked that this didn't end in her murder. It's that kind of vibe. I doubt she walked far, but still, I mean, if he had just driven off, I wouldn't have been surprised. Now, she does make the point that, you know, she doesn't get embarrassed often, but the way she's talking, she's clearly embarrassed of other people seeing her struggle. I'm actually not here to have a go at her about that, because I get that when you're that size and you're struggling hard, you don't want people to see you. But this idea that she doesn't care when people are looking is simply something I'll never believe. And we refer to it again at the end of it. Next piece of content, and it's not believable then either. She confirms for me that they haven't been walking very long when she says, when we hit 5 minutes, we'll go back. Her breath is struggling a lot here, but she is at least doing something, even in a limited fashion. I can't believe there would be that many people at the beach that it's worth driving out to a deserted area of desert to do this. So when she says, oh, I'm not embarrassed really when people see me, just a little, not often, the actions don't match what she's saying. We talk a little bit about weather. She says the heat is still present, but it's starting to turn to humidity. It isn't quite reaching the heights it did the other month. And I would say it's about the same in Oman, to be honest. It's still really hot outside. Oh my God. But it's a little bit more manageable when the sun is down at the very least. But with Oman, we have humidity. As soon as it starts to get really, really hot, you feel the air starting to thicken. I think because it's just a lot greener than some of the other places I've been in the Middle East, but man, you feel it all the time. The walk back to the car is killing her. You can hear the struggle. Salah is counting down with the timer, and I doubt she finds it as funny as he does in this moment. You can see she's trying to maintain like calm and cool and laughter, but it feels a little forced. He asks her how she's feeling, and she says, some chest pain, Oh God. I suppose it's not surprising though, given how she's gasping. It could just be, you know, when you get a stitch when you run, that kind of like tightness in your chest, or it could actually be chest pain. What do we know? She's hot, but she's okay. She looks really sweaty right now. I'll put a picture up. But that being said, I got stuck walking around the city the other day because we got lost trying to find our bank branch. My bank is merging and we need to go get new cards and stuff. And it wasn't where Google Maps said it was. We ended up wandering around for 30 minutes trying to find the actual bank we needed to be at. And when I tell you I look like I dipped myself in a swimming pool, like, I don't blame her for looking like this. However, I get that she's on camera and she wants to look somewhat made up on camera. Like, I get that. And I'm equally guilty because if I'm not made up on camera, I'll do a voiceover. But when I think of the makeup she's wearing and how sweaty she is, and I think about how she doesn't clean off her skincare properly, it's really no surprise that her skin is looking as rough as it is. And I say this as someone who'd be the first to tell you that I'm suffering with some little pimples and some little bits of redness because I start adding glycolic acid into my skincare routine at night. But this is like my face purging for a few weeks while it gets used to the new thing. Hers just gets worse and the sweat is going to irritate her. Like she needs to clean her face well and have a good routine in place. I won't go into it any more than that because I know we've talked about it, but still. If she was going to the trouble of being in the deserted desert in the dead of night, she could have maybe just gone barefaced. There was no one to see her. She says she's combining exercise with intermittent fasting. Intermittent. Did I just say that right? If I said it wrong, apologies. Frequently, she doesn't really understand how these things are done properly and effectively, so we will see. But I doubt she'll be on this kick long enough for it to really matter anyway. We do clearly have really big day one vibes though. I don't think she's been doing this for the couple of days she's been off camera. Like, especially with the Americano, she likes flavor in her drink. And again, I cannot drink black coffee. I try. Occasionally I think, no, a little bit of sugar-free syrup, I'll be okay. No, I'd rather count the milk. I switched to almond milk to help myself, but I'd rather count the milk. I just don't like it. So if she's still drinking it, this will be the first day. She makes Salah say on camera that he's hungry and wants to go get some food because if he's thin and he does it, then clearly it's okay. God, don't be so judgmental. And the video finishes there. So we're going to move on to her other piece of content, which was the Mahashi, I think it was, mukbang. Modest Miriam rides again, and we've got healthy food. So again, big first day of diet energy. And oh God, she starts with, many people have been asking what the hardest thing about being a revert is. Didn't she just do this video? Like literally a week or so ago, didn't she just do the hardest things about being a revert or something like that? We don't need this video again. She's scraping the bottom of the barrel trying to find things to talk about. So number one, as you might expect for her, is dealing with emotion. Not arguing back, backbiting, demeaning people's character. That's literally her entire MO. She did quite funnily talk about some of the videos she deletes and the community posts she deletes and things like that. And she says, I know people think I do it because they don't put me in the best light. And that setup kind of makes it sound like she's going to say, but this is why I do it. But no, she just confirms that that's exactly the reason, because she doesn't like having her doing these things on display. I'm not sure how that becomes justification in her head. Oh, I don't like it when I do that, but I won't change my behavior. But girl is fishing for those new audience members. Maybe getting down under 94k scared her a little bit, I don't know. She refers to her food, which is some stuffed vegetable things and a salad. Says this is all the food she's had today, this and the iced coffee. Goes back to her conversation, says there are things that she struggles with and she needs to develop patience. In Islam, we're taught to pray through any hardship and have patience and faith. Well, that certainly seems like something she practices, doesn't it? She reminds us that she's not used to being religious, that she's only been a revert for 6 or 7 months. I'm not saying that people don't slip, all right? Or that they may be perfect the first time when it comes to big changes of this nature. But Foodie hasn't even done the bare minimum of when it comes to like the learning usually associated with this kind of huge change. And when we look at what we know of her habits, like she doesn't attend a prayer center regularly, she doesn't appear to be in contact with an imam of any kind, she hasn't taken steps to build relationships within her new faith or seek out guidance, and has read no more of the Quran than like a couple of pages and anything she can Google to prove a point in the moment. And that being the case, I am not inclined to give her the benefit of this argument. If you're doing the things to attempt to make the change successfully, then the effort behind it might excuse a few minor mistakes. But she's not. She's living with exactly pretty much the values and the practices she had pre-reversion. And then she's using time as an excuse not to keep to that guidance. I don't pretend to be an expert in religion of any kind, but what little I do understand of Islam, intent has a huge impact, whether the action or not is successful. And Foodie likes to say, well, only God can judge her, but I think if she had any real connection to the faith she professes, she would be more concerned about that. It wouldn't be a gotcha for the audience. Now, the true center of her feelings and of her faith cannot be known by anybody outside of her and, if you follow her beliefs, the God she believes in. That much is absolutely true. But I can judge the actions she presents online. Because Foodie has a problem with basic human respect. And that's not something you necessarily need a religion to teach. There is no good enough or not good enough when it comes to converting to any faith, but you can correlate her actions, like the ones I mentioned in terms of pursuing her learning and contact with her faith leaders and community and things like that, and easily see a complete lack of engagement. We're not sitting here saying, oh, you stumbled in that prayer wording, or you accidentally took a sip of water during Ramadan because you just forgot, which happens sometimes. This is a complete lack of cohesion between what appears to be central and fundamental aspects of her faith and the life she's actually living. She likes to hold up Islam as like a shield and a sword to ward off the consequences of her own actions, and then has the nerve to say that she needs patience from other people, because clearly it's our judgment that's the problem. She interrupts herself to go back to the food for a sec. She said she sometimes craves something meatless, and yeah, every time she starts a diet, she thinks veganism is a good idea, because at some point when she was away, she was somewhere where they fed her vegan food and she lost weight. But back to Foodie justifying her actions. She said she's not going to have the Quran read in 6 months or right away. 6 months is long enough to read a book. Yeah? Not understand it. There are people far smarter than Foodie, far more engaged in their faith, who literally dedicate their life's work to the understanding of religious texts. I do not expect, and it would be unrealistic to expect, that of Foodie or any person new to the faith. But physically read it? Like get from one cover to the other, even with no understanding? Yes, I expect that from you at 8 months. What a ridiculous thing to say, no, I believe in this enough to dedicate my entire life and change my entire mode of existence, even though we could argue she actually hasn't, she just put on the costume. I will do all of that, but I haven't read the book that this is based on. I don't think that is unrealistic, particularly if you're going to weaponize its teachings every time someone criticizes you. She starts talking again about her eating disorder. She said she's been struggling with it really badly, and she's also kind of connected to that idea, been struggling with moderation. She really wants to improve. She wants to be more moderate in her mood, her temper, and wants to apply it to her food. I think potentially going down to a small eating window where she just eats vegan food might be a swing a little too far in the other direction if we're talking about moderation, but this is a mistake she has repeated completely outside of anything in terms of her new faith. She's repeated that cycle in every diet she's ever tried. And she further reinforces that with the thinking of hopefully she can become addicted to her new routine. And I was like, well, why does it have to be this extreme? Why do you have to be addicted to the new routine? Why can't you just establish it and be consistent? 1, because it sounds less fun, and 2, because it puts more responsibility on her back. If you're addicted to anything, good or bad, then it's beyond your control. There is nothing you can do about it because addicts never do the work to recover, I guess. So if she's addicted to her new routine, she'll have no choice but to slavishly follow those whims. I realise the sarcasm in my voice is likely obvious, but if you have a sarcasm meter that you will usually apply to me, please assume I am nearing the top of it. She says the positive change is never easy for her because she has lessons to learn from that, and we all know how well she responds to learning, being taught, being told what to do, which is what it all translates to in her head. And then fairly quickly and with no small amount of whiplash, we switch the subject to salt and vinegar vegetables and back to her food. She went out today in modest style Western dress. I think she said a pants and a shirt, and she doesn't like it. She likes Islamic dress. She says if she's outside and her head is covered, it's hot anyway. I don't entirely understand why Foodie chooses that particular style of head covering. There are many different types of head covering, right? Some are taught by different pockets within the Muslim faith. Some are more common within certain geographic areas. And then some are seen like across borders in general. Now, Foodie's wearing a really common type where it has like that cap underneath and then one over. And there's nothing wrong with it. I imagine she feels more secure with her hair, and that's really why. But there's nothing wrong with what she's wearing. It's a very common type of head covering. But here's the thing. Foodie didn't grow up in any of the areas where she would have a particular connection with a particular type of covering. And there's lots of different kinds. When I was in Saudi Arabia, one of the most common ones I saw was just a loose, like the scarf, but around the head. Because that's made of the same stuff the abayas are made of, it's a much lighter way to do it while still covering everything. And you just take a pin, and we've seen her with the pins, and wrap it round. So she is choosing her level of discomfort there. Now, she gets to choose it. It's completely within her rights to choose it. I realise she's going to be uncomfortable outside regardless, but you're not making it any easier on yourself. If she's just fulfilling the requirements of, okay, I need my hair covered, which is absolutely fine, there are lots of ways she could do it and feel better. She says she feels more comfortable people not seeing my shape. She claims it's not because she's fat and refers to her exposing herself all over the internet previously, but she also literally just drove out 20 minutes in the dead of night to the desert so no one would see her walking. And she says immediately after this, she likes her shape covered. So yes, you don't like your body being seen, and there is a religious argument for that. But the reason she's doing it appears to be a discomfort within her own appearance in public. I'm sure she would argue it. Not every fat person is lacking in confidence, and she is perfectly welcome to be confident. But based on what she's saying and what she's showing, she's not showing confidence in her actions. Yes, she's done all these things online, but the intermediary of a camera has always seemed to protect her emotionally from the idea that she's actually doing this in front of everyone. So I do think she just processes real life and camera differently. And we are at the end of the video pretty much. She reminds us about the new couples video. We've already covered it. And tells us that she's trying to increase the content there and hopes to include travel in the future. And that's where we are. We are all done. I hope you enjoyed this recap. I'm going to get this edited down, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.